Well, hello there. How is everyone? I hope you are all well. It's Terrific Tuesday. It's Terrific Tuesday. And do you know what else is terrific? You. Terrific for being here. And you also look terrific. That's right. Terrific. Now, we're going to do something a little bit different because I have indeed now watched the court TV stuff. Thank you very much for those of you who sent me it. Thank you very much. I watched it this morning. I actually watched it twice. One, because a lot of the time through the first time I kind of was watching it like that. And the second time I was watching it like that. And tonight we're going to do a live and we'll go over it. I'll answer some questions for those of you who have not watched it. And answer some questions on those of you who did and see whether we can compare opinions. Because at this stage, that's all we have, opinions, speculation. And later on, between this video and when I do the live, I am going to revisit something, and that is the potential of an alternative story, and perhaps surrounding the frat situation. And I just want to touch on something with you guys again regarding that. Because I feel that as much as the Brian Kohberger situation holds weight, I feel that also that story holds equally, if not more weight. And I know we've touched on it before, but I'm aware that not everybody saw it, you know, and the difference between one story and one narrative and a different variation, they're separated by volume. How many people get to see them and to consider them? And is it fair to have one narrative drowning out everything else? Surely that is then unfair. But anyway, who gets to pick what fair is? It would appear Moscow, Idaho, and the FBI. But anyway, that's by and by. What I'm doing is an aftermath. This is the aftermath of the court TV documentary. Documentary. I'll get there in the end. Because obviously a lot of people have seen it. It's up on YouTube now. So not only the people who saw it originally, but the people who are now watching it on YouTube itself. It's garnered 55,000 views approximately. But the way YouTube works is that you won't see how many views it's actually had because there's a slight delay. So like when my video says X amount of people have watched it, sometimes it's double that. It just takes a while for the public figure update to actually calculate and settle. So I would say 65, 70,000 people, potentially even 80,000 people have seen it in the first few hours. And it will be well over 100,000 within the next 3 or 4 days. And that's a lot of people seeing a specific type of narrative being pushed. And although there are little weavings of reality in there, that is drowned out by the likes of Vinny, who has got a boner for Kohberger, clearly. But we'll talk about it tonight, because for now we're going to talk about, like I say, the aftermath. And that is going through some of the comments that have gone up on the video, on the court TV video. And we're going to address them. We're not going to do them all because it's about 800 and it would take. But I think we're going to kind of... Some of these, that'll be the first time that I've seen them. I kind of started looking at them and I thought, do you know what? We've got to look at these together, because it's an indication of how people are controlled by certain things being pushed. And you have to step back and think, could a jury be manipulated in this fashion and have the same thoughts that these people are having when they see something like this? Because I think it's fair to say it would be hard to find someone on the jury or to come onto the jury who has not been subjected to watching stuff like this. And I think it was actually Lawyer in his live yesterday, and he was talking about like documentaries that come out. Someone had asked a question about whether there would be a Netflix documentary, and he said he would prefer that not to happen pre-trial because of the damage and detrimental effect that can have on a trial. And I know that there's stuff in the works because I've been approached by a broadcasting place who are working on behalf of the BBC here in the UK, which is one of our biggest, if not the biggest, television network. So they are out there, and they are building a documentary that is going to go somewhere. I don't exactly know where that's going to be aired, how it's going to be aired, but they are making it. And if Tragus's theory over how long this could potentially take to go to trial, I would bet my bollocks to a barn dance that is going to be out before he goes to trial, and definitely before there's a conclusion. But shall we get into it and have a look at some of these comments? He says 5 minutes in the video. That weren't too much of a digress, was it? Let's have a look. So, the eyewitness was so scared she locked herself in a room. She had a mobile and could have called for help but didn't. Doesn't seem like a very scared person. But again, I think it was Vinny who turned around and said sometimes they freeze. They don't know what to do. They genuinely forget how to use a telephone. That's part of frozen shock phase. When you go into frozen shock phase, it literally is that. You are frozen and you just sit there for 8 hours or stand there staring at the wall. And you definitely can't use a phone because of the frozenness of your arm. They put their whole life on social media, and Brian tried to befriend, but they weren't interested. And his opportunity came when they were at their most vulnerable, alcohol, and waited until they are in bed. How did Brian, first of all, know that they are in bed? How did he know? Bearing in mind that these kids were out and about at 1:45. They were around, they were eating their food, they were seen at the grub truck, and they'd got home at around 2 a.m., sort of 2 a.m. in the morning. Was that what we was told? And there was a load of cars out there, and this is a house that, by their own admission, was a party house. This place was a party house, and it's been reported in the likes of legacy media, those that you lot are listening to, that there would be hundreds of people here. There'd been hundreds of people through this place, and yeah, we'll come back to that because I saw a comment and I don't want to make a point. Defence keeps trying to delay the trial, hoping to find reasonable doubt evidence that goes in their favour, but they're wasting their time. The defence doesn't keep trying to delay the what's going on. They have no option because they're asking for discovery on, quite specifically, the IGG. And if you want to learn more about the IGG, you're genuinely invested in it, then NEEKS PEEKS did a video. I'll put the link in description. I would suggest go and watch it because it kind of raises some very valid points about why, if and why, Brian Kohberger himself could have been framed. And it does bring into question the DNA situation, because we're supposed to be led to believe that they've done it in this real convoluted manner. But I think a lot of us have questioned there were easier routes to take. Definitely easier routes to take. And as per the Court TV documentary, it would seem that they kind of had Brian Kohberger in the sights very, very early on. So did they really not have any ability to get his DNA? His DNA. That doesn't make sense to me. Doesn't make sense to me. There would have been ways to get his DNA and not have to travel all the way to Pennsylvania and do the bin diving. That to me is fucking bizarre. Right, so what else have we got? When he got pulled over in Washington, his car did not come back as a Hyundai Elantra per listening to dispatch when the officer had run the plate of his car. Interesting. I have no idea what that is all about. Let's go up a bit. I'm glad the girls had each other to cross over with, and also the two downstairs. Whatever happened, I'm glad They had their special person to give each other comfort at the scariest moment of their lives. Not one person in that circle of friends in that group had said Brian was in that house at any time and doesn't even know who he is. He was a loner. Now, it's very clear that there was periods of time at this house when there were parties going on, and the police had asked, when they turned up for the noise complaints, whose house it was. The people in that house, actually in it and partying in it, apparently didn't know who lived in it. So to say that no one had seen Brian, knew Brian, or any of this, I find a bit odd, because I look at it like these kids don't know what's going on when they're in a house full of people. They don't even know who own it. So would it not, Brian, he's not going to stick out, is he? He's not, unless he walks in there wearing some sort of a luminous outfit or a dinosaur outfit, he's not going to be memorable, is he? Not really. So if everyone's drunk, they're pissed up, they're at a party, they're raving, they don't even know whose house they're in, they're just happy to be in a house, and how would they not know if they were partying with Brian on that night? I don't know. I wonder how Jack Showalter is doing in Africa. Yeah, ain't that the thing? The transfer DNA in this case is bollocks. He had no friends or people that wanted to hang out with him, so that's not credible. That was the same person who had made the comment, what we just addressed, and I don't need to address this, do I? The transfer DNA in this case is bollocks. Well, no, it's not bollocks. DNA can be transferred. That's how DNA transfer works. When they say touch DNA, that is actually the fundamental basis of that. It's been transferred via touch, and that can be touch of a person or something that's been touched by somebody. So I could shake someone's hand and they could touch something. They don't have to be a friend. That could be anyone. It could be absolutely anyone. It could just be that he'd touched it himself and sold it. For a start, he could have just touched the sheath in some other setting and it's made its way into this house. It's an odd one, I must admit, but it's definitely not bollocks. If your life is on the line and you could die, I don't think you're going to look at it as bollocks. Personally, I don't believe in coincidence. That cuts both ways in this case, because there's coincidences on both sides of the fence. Shut down, lol, frozen shock, although no problem texting. No problem texting, no. And they also got tattoos shortly after as well. So they quickly got over any kind of initial shock and, Why did you not mention Dylan and Bethany were texting each other? Because that doesn't fit their narrative. Why the survivor who was using her cell when she looked out her door for the third time and said the suspect went out the sliding door at 4:25, but video surveillance video from the gas station showed they say it's suspect's car at 4:20. Because people consistently get times wrong. You skipped something. Look at the car. They claimed to be suspect one's car. Claimed it was a 2011 to 2013. There was a good reason for those years to be named. There was a big glaring difference between 2011 and 2015 Elantra. The car in the videos shows an amber lens in the tail light assemble. Now look at Brian's car tail light when pulled over by the Indiana police. There are no amber lights. You could only get amber lights on the 2011 model, not the 2015. Next, look at the headlights of the suspect's car. What shape are the headlights? Rounded and no amber lights now. I don't need to read that anymore. We've done the car to death. I think the in terms of what we've seen publicly, there isn't enough evidence to distinguish that car between a 2011 and 2015. There just isn't. They could be either. There are so many. There are very, very minor aesthetic variations between them 2 years, and they just couldn't be seen on what we've seen, what we've had access to. Been trying to find loopholes since last year. Now I'm convinced that realistically there is a very little probability that it wasn't Brian. What I don't understand is why he was so careless, considering that he most likely planned for this for a while and had some reasonable knowledge on investigative techniques. He clearly had no intention to get caught, so it makes me wonder, why do so many stupid amateur mistakes, like drive around the scene in your own car several times, surveillance, they're probably in that, yeah. And that is a very valid point. I think it's one of the biggest questions that you have to consider in this, and that is, with Brian's training and his knowledge, why so many mistakes? The guy wasn't an idiot, do you know what I mean? He wasn't an idiot, and you could argue about the knife sheath situation being a mistake caught up in what was going on, someone catches you off guard, and it gets lost in kind of the ruckus of things. But then I think to myself, like I've said before, why would he not have gone back for it? He would have known, even if he got out to the car, he would have known that he didn't have it on him. I've said before, haven't I? You know, you've got it in your hand, and what does he do with it? Put it in his pocket? Does he carry it out of the house with it? Or, you know, it's an odd one, isn't it? It's an odd one to think at some point he's got to know that that's gone. And why would he not go back for it? Maybe he knew that there was other people awake in the house. Maybe he'd come face to face with them and literally chosen to leave them, and he had no choice but to leave, and that's why the car was seen leaving at pace. It explains it, but it doesn't explain the multiple other issues here. You know, the fact that we're led to believe, and again pushed in court TV, that he'd frequented this area no less than 12 times. They're pushing very hard the stalker narrative, and he's constantly got his phone, which is hanging him here. So if part of this visiting this area is to do reconnaissance, he's still not thinking that this going here this many times with your phone, it's bizarre to me. It is bizarre. He must know that this, if something goes wrong on that night, because he's got to contemplate something going wrong, and this is all going to be things that they can find. But he doesn't even try to hide his multiple times going here. And I can't work out that if he's specifically going from Washington to Idaho with the sole intention of stalking, then why isn't he doing more to hide his tracks even back then? So he's not hid his tracks on the traveling to do the stalking. He's turned his phone off or whatever. Again, that's what's being pushed. He's turned his phone off on the night, and he's driven his own car. Now, if he's been there 12 times as well, then why is his car behaving in a manner that seems to suggest that he doesn't know where he's going? He must have planned where he would drive, where he would park. Why didn't he just drive straight to where he was going to park to leave the car to go to the house and do it? Why all of this fucking about and getting caught on these cameras? I don't really understand it. But anyway, there's a lot of mistakes there. Oh, I'm trying to move that. We don't need to move that. We need to move this. There is Steve with a hex hat. I would never trust the life to any public defenders. They work for the state. They do indeed. Ann Taylor is suspicious, so-called defender. She is capable only to trick her clients and to the system. I would not want her to defend me at this. Look, she's got a job. I must admit I'm a little bit uncomfortable knowing her history. I think time will tell on it. At the moment, there's an argument either way for whether she's doing good by Brian. Like I've said in the past, and my thought process still remains the same, that if Brian Koberger is guilty, I almost feel like she's doing him a solid and she's doing well. If he's innocent, then I still feel that they should have pushed ahead and gone to trial, because my mentality is that if he's innocent, then the situation is not going to change. What they have is what they have. They don't have to prove anything. They just have to argue stuff as it comes in. And I know there's a lot more to it. But if you ask people for discovery 10 times and they're not getting it to you, and you pair that with, oh, I didn't do it, then, you know, you can always go to trial and you can appeal. And there's so many things that they could even now appeal on with the request for discovery. The IGG situation, they could force their hand on this. But to now, the only person this delay benefits in the event that Brian Koberger is an innocent man is the prosecution. We've already seen the situation with the FBI being able to go back and apparently do further scans of the 1122 King Road premises that was due to be demolished. So they're already further forward and got more to bolster whatever they're going to come out with than they would have had. So that, Ann Taylor, has not helped your client. Not one iota, because on the day, this is going to be about selling a story. And this is my point in showing you this, is the selling a story. But let's have a look. Let's see if we can pick any specific ones out. Ann Taylor twice tricked Koberger out of a speedy trial. The first time was on January the 5th hearing. Second time was on August 23rd hearing. The first time was... I was just going to read it again. Why Ann Taylor would do this, refusing the speedy trial. If cops did not have any evidence on Koberger's guilt, Ann Taylor could win the case at the speedy trial. If cops do not have any relevant evidence of Koberger's guilt, and yet Ann Taylor refused the speedy trial, she decided to rot her client in jail for several years without the trial. Why she wanted to do so? Because she is working for Dylan's uncle, Stanley Mortensen, the Kootenai chief prosecutor. They do not want Dylan to testify at the trial against Idaho cops. That's why Ann Taylor never filed the list of relevant witnesses for the trial, and she tricked naive Koberger to refuse the speedy trial twice, hoping that cops, killers would kill the poor scapegoat in jail before the trial. That's a big one. I've never known a case with so much evidence against a suspect before even set a trial date, with a lot more evidence unknown until the trial starts. I've never known a case with so much evidence against a suspect. Oh, that's Kevin again. I'm not going to read any more from Kevin. Kevin's a little bit annoying. Did you guys all see all those people who were at their house didn't know who lived there, and the people who were living there weren't there? This is an issue. Exactly that. Let's have a look. Are you naive? The same as the naive, poor-framed scapegoat Koberger, naively trusting his life to the public defenders. Do you think public defenders will work for you for free? I think that might be the same person who said that before. That person has got a lot of stuff that they're bringing. We'll just skip through that. We'll bring it to an end. We'll bring it to an end shortly. Payne is so rich, he has so many private companies. Oh, it's the same person. Someone's got a hard-on for him. A PhD student versus a well-known drug house. Even their parents are involved with heart... Well, I started reading this thinking that we would see a lot of people supportive of the court TV narrative, but it seems, my general feeling is that there's a lot of people who have a lot of questions. And I will say this, with regards to this court TV documentary, it's been interesting because you see them, they're saying the same stuff. They're just recycling the same version of a story to set and suit their narrative. And it almost comes across now as forced and fake. Because it's like they're embellishing every single minute detail. that Vinny guy in particular, when they talk about the DNA, you've got a DNA specialist, a DNA specialist coming forward and saying how easy it is for transfer DNA to appear on an item, and the fact that there are multiple stories and cases where people's DNA have been found at crime scenes where they genuinely were never there. And then you've got Vinny dribbling and foaming at the mouth saying, yeah, but maybe he just did it and it's there because he did it. He did it. Calm down, mate. Yeah, he absolutely might. But you live in America, and to be right and proper, even an accused person should have the presumption of innocence, which will lead me into video 2 later on today. Because equally with the presumption of innocence, there comes the presumption of guilt. And I'll catch you all in the next one.